I recognise, though, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party. This morning
Wow. 45 days in office or 6 weeks in office, and the UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has resigned. Now, this is terrible. It's embarrassing, it's embarrassing for the UK. It's embarrassing, the whole situation. But we can see that when it comes to Brexit, when it comes to leadership in the UK, it's just kind of like, obviously they need the right person for the job, and it's a lot. It's more than they could have anticipated. So I just kind of want to talk about the UK, and I don't know how to say this without sounding like mean and stuff, but it's like the decline of the British Empire. We saw it happen with Egypt. We saw it happen with Italy when you look at Rome, the Roman Empire. And now we're seeing it happen with the British Empire. And the question is this what's going to happen to America next? Now, why am I talking about the British Empire? Because I spent a third of my life in the UK. I know you hear an American accent. I spent a third of my life in the UK, starting from the age of 6. So I'm very much, entangled in how things work in the UK. And I just see, and just also, especially going to primary school in the UK and even secondary school, just understanding how the systems are, how things work, how things, especially in comparison to America. I kind of want to talk about that. I kind of want to talk about how we're seeing the fall of the British Empire before our eyes right now. So first of all, let's see. Okay, before I even get into that, I kind of want to talk about what's going to happen now that she's leaving office. What does this mean for the UK right now? So let me play this video.
It looks like Liz Truss is on her way out of Downing Street, so what happens next? Tory MPs will want to avoid another long leadership election. We just had one of those. They might want to change the rules so that only they, not ordinary party members, get to decide on who's the next leader. Or it could be that only one candidate comes forward and they become leader automatically. There is another way it could work. Liz Truss could technically stay on as party leader and resign as Prime Minister. If a majority of Tory MPs choose a single candidate, that person could go to King Charles and ask to form a government. However it happens, it looks like we're about to get our 4th Conservative Prime Minister in 4 years. And the first question that person will face is, when's the next general election?
Okay, so that's a little bit of information of what's going to happen now. But I just want to talk about how, first of all, Brexit was just a terrible, I think Brexit ushered in the end of the British Empire. Firstly, I think so because, I spent a lot of time in London over the summer, and I just could see, because now that, especially Europeans who really were the backbone of the economy when it comes to the policies, when it comes to like a lot of policies in the UK, especially when it comes to like the workers, unions and all that stuff, it's very lenient. It doesn't encourage the kind of work ethic that you see happening in countries like America. So a lot of people, especially British people, will lean on the workers' unions and say, well, they shouldn't work past this time or they shouldn't work past that time. Long story short, what I'm saying is all these immigrants from Europe were the ones that were sort of doing all the dirty jobs, all the jobs that the British people didn't want to do. That's what you saw happening. And now that they're gone, now you can just see things are not functioning at 100%. I just think about, because, the American in me, I go to like in the summer in the UK, obviously, the sun's still out. Let's say it's like 5 p.m. and like Marks and Spencer's is closed on a Sunday at 5 p.m. like, first of all, America, where the places I've lived in America, it's like New York City, LA, Boston, a little bit in Miami, now in DC. Like, these are like 24/7 cities, like, almost, like, not Boston, not really Boston, but nothing is closed at 5 p.m. If anything, you're going to close at like 9 or 10, if that. But New York City, 24/7 city. LA, pretty much 24/7, right? I just can't even understand how I go to Marks and Spencer's. The sun's out. There's so many people out. Sun's out, buns out. It's hot girl summer. And it's 5 p.m. and Marks and Spencer's is closed. And Marks and Spencer's, like, they have everything. Like, there's a grocery store. They have clothing. They have everything. So I think I was going to the grocery store and it was closed. Like, they're not even trying to take advantage of the business opportunity with all these people out. All these people out in the summer, but you choose to close your business. And why is that? Because, well, first of all, yes, this has always been the culture in Europe generally. You know, they like, it's not really, we don't really get 24/7 cities in Europe. They don't really have sort of that American work ethic, right? But when it comes down to it, a lot of this sort of, they just don't have people that will take these jobs, because a lot of British people are, I just want to, okay, spoiled rich kids. And no, they're not financially rich themselves necessarily, but the UK is a rich country. The UK colonized the world, and now it's like they've built and created a generation of people that are like spoiled rich kids, because everything is always provided for you. You know, in the UK, you get, if you are under a certain tax bracket, and let's say you're a mother of 3, you get free housing, you get welfare, you get free healthcare. Everyone gets free healthcare, even though the NHS is trash, it's still free. So I just feel it's just the UK has fostered a generation or a culture for the past probably 150 years, a culture of lazy people. And I won't say, I know that sounds terrible, but I'm not saying that the people are lazy. I just say the culture is lazy, and the system kind of forces you into that laziness. I'll give you an example. When, I was in primary school, even secondary school, right? Let's say they decide they'll assess you when you go into the school, and then they'll decide that, well, there's no upward mobility for you in that, they'll assess you. Let's say they decide that you're going to go on the dumb table. There's no way you're going from the dumb table to the smart table, or the A set, which is the class where the smartest, like, let's say there's an A set, B set, C set in a math class. If you come out in the C set, they're not putting you to the B set. They're not putting you to the A set. They might take you down from A to C, but there's no upward mobility. So I just think there's a culture of complacency. There's a culture of, like, almost mediocrity that is being fostered, and a lack of ambition, because just when you think about classism and how it was really designed, especially in the UK, classism, there's really, you don't really see upward mobility through class. It happens, but it's not even nearly or even remotely to the degree that it happens in America. And so I just feel that complacency, because people just assume I'm not going up in life, so I'll just like be average, and that's okay. That's one component. Another component is the fact that a lot of people drop out of school at 16, so they don't have that higher education. A lot of people, not all, a lot of people do this. So they drop out of school at 16. They don't even have like what is equivalent to a high school diploma. They'll have a GCSE. They don't necessarily have a high school diploma, and they certainly don't have a university degree. So I just think it's a melting pot of mediocrity that has been fostered in the country for so long. It's like when you see those spoiled rich kids, that because their dad was rich, because the UK is so rich and has provided so many amenities, even just look at the British Library, look at like all the free services that people get. People don't have to work for these things. I think in America, when you look at America, you have to work just to get basic healthcare, even though, yes, the healthcare is far superior, not as good as the French healthcare system, but far superior. You're paying a lot of money, an insane amount of money. And I look at Canada, where you get high quality healthcare and you get it for free. So in the UK, you get terrible healthcare, but you get it for free. In America, you get amazing healthcare, but it's so expensive. And then in Canada, you get the best of both worlds. And there are other countries like that. So I just have seen this sort of like fostering of mediocrity in the UK. And why am I saying this? Why am I bringing this up? Because I look at Liz Truss, I look at Theresa May, I look at Boris Johnson, I look at them and I'm just kind of like, I get it. It was overwhelming what they have to deal with. It just seems as though as soon as Brexit became the name of the game, it's like everybody's running away they don't want to be blamed for the repercussions of that. But to spend 45 days in office is ridiculous. Like it's embarrassing, especially for women, because that's the excuse that everyone needs. Well, she was a woman. She wasn't woman enough to do it. She wasn't strong enough. Like, you need to get a man to do it. Because even Boris Johnson, we could say all we want to say about him, but anyone that endured COVID the way that he did, you have to give him props for that alone. Just even that alone. The fact that he endured COVID and got the country through COVID and did an even more successful job, arguably, than even America, especially with getting people vaccinated in the long run. The fact that he went through that, you got to give him some props. Like, you got to give him, even though, like, I know there are a lot of haters for Boris, but you got to give the man some props. But when it comes down to it, 45, it's embarrassing. It's extremely embarrassing. And then another reason I wanted to bring up this, yes, it doesn't help. Like, okay, we're thinking about Brexit. That's number one. We're thinking about COVID. We're still kind of dealing with the financial or the inflation that was caused by COVID and all the, we're just now getting back into the system. So that was tough. And then in addition to that, the Ukraine invasion or the Ukraine war, Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and what that's done to the world's like energy, right? And in fact, I was even seeing this, I saw this article in the UK that said that some houses will have to deal without electricity. They're going to have load shedding for a certain amount of hours. Let me Google it. Load. That, for me, when you talk about load shedding in the United Kingdom, Jesus, load shedding in the United Kingdom, you're talking about third world status. How would 3 hours power cuts work if enacted in Britain, right? Okay, so no, I'm trying to find the article I saw. Yeah, it's happening. So having load shedding in the United Kingdom is ridiculous. Third world country status. And to me, when I see that, it just tells me that this country is going to shit, right? The country is going to shit. And I say all this to say, Brexit was a terrible idea. COVID, I mean, it affected the whole world terribly. Brexit was a terrible idea. Russia, these are things that you could not predict, but Brexit was the thing that really sent everything off. And it's like we're having record high inflation rates. I think up to double digits, 10 point something % inflation. Like I can't remember, like I can't remember how long it's been since something like this happened, but it's a long time. So it just makes you question what's going to happen to the UK. Is it the fall of the British Empire? These are the things that I'm just curious to know about. What are your thoughts? What do you think about Liz Truss leaving, resigning? What do you think about that? Who do you think would be good? Do you think they should do another election? It'll cost a lot of money to do another election, so I don't even think that would be a wise idea. And I know the UK is a parliamentary democracy, so they can, like as a woman described, what they could do, they could appoint someone because they just had an election. It was expensive. Funding another election would be ridiculous. But I just kind of feel like I don't think she could anticipate what it took to get there, right? I don't think she could have anticipated it. But I think there needs to be a little bit more of awareness for people to really understand what it is they're stepping into. And I just wonder if it's the culture that I described of sort of like the culture of mediocrity that makes these people not equipped to go into these positions. And I'm not saying that like the British people are lazy or anything. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying there's this culture that's fostered of mediocrity and complacency and a lack of ambition and upward mobility. So I wonder, like, who is really the next person that's going to be able to take the wheel and have full control and have ambition? You really need someone with ambition. And I see, and I wonder, like, you know, we look at Italy, we look at Egypt, and it's just kind of like they are a shadow of their past. And the question is that happening to the UK? And more importantly, is that what's coming next for America? And the reason I asked this is I watched somewhere where they said the 1800s was the decade, or sorry, the century of the British. The 1900s was the century of America. The 2000s, this century, is a century of Asia, and then 2100s is a century of Africa. So this is the question we're looking at. What's going to happen to the UK, and what does this mean for America? Obviously, this is not related to America, but if we're going by the centuries that we're excelling, the question is, how quickly are they going to decline now? You know, and what is the UK going to look like in the next, like, 2 decades if they're already doing load shedding? Because once you go into that system of load shedding, I'll give you an example. I was in South Africa a few weeks ago, and when there was load shedding, it was like all the power stations went off and all the cell phone companies like sort of like went off in the area. And so you had no ability to use your cell phone. And yes, you could have a generator, but the internet wasn't working, your cell phone wasn't working. And think about the opportunity that creates for crimes to flourish. And also, yes, we know the issue in the UK when it comes to load shedding is not a maintenance issue, which is the case for most countries. When it comes to their power grid, it's typically a maintenance issue that sends them into load shedding. Like Nigeria, we have NEPA, and that's due to lack of maintenance. In this case, in the UK, it's actually due to lack of energy because of the Ukraine invasion, and Russia being that it supplies energy to a lot of European countries. And now European countries are looking for alternatives. So yes, sure, it's not a maintenance issue, but it's a lack of energy issue. But my question is, how quickly does that then turn into a maintenance issue when there's a lack of energy, right, to use? So that's the question. How quickly, because once you're rolling down a hill, there's going to be momentum and you're just going to keep rolling faster. So it's going to take some really steady hands, some really ambitious people to bring the UK back to where it started off at the beginning in the year 2000, or even like, you know, higher. So like it's going to take some really, really steady hands to know what they're doing, someone that's ambitious. And I'm just curious to see what happens there. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. What do you think about all this? Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. You're watching the Kenim O Show, and I'm your host, Kenim O. All right, see you next time. A peace and stream.